Hi sweet friends, I'm Mary from marysnest.com, and here on my channel I share traditional recipes for making nutrient-dense foods using simple ingredients. And today I'm going to show you how to make crispy nuts. We're going to soak them and dry them, and they're going to be tender and delicious. Well, this couldn't be easier. All I do is take 2 tablespoons of a coarse ground sea salt. If you use a fine ground sea salt, just use 1 tablespoon. I just sprinkle this right on top, and then I'm just going to fill this bowl with some filtered water. You can use spring water from the bottle that you buy at the grocery store. You can just use filtered water and allow it to sit overnight and let the chlorine evaporate. So we just don't want the chlorine to interfere with the soaking process. We're just going to pour all this right over here. Just keep filling this up. And you want to use a good sized bowl to do this, because these nuts are going to expand once they absorb all the water. So you want to make sure that they're well covered. I'm just going to use all of this. Perfect. Alrighty. And that's it. All we do now is put them in a little bit of a warm place in your kitchen where it can rest undisturbed. I'm going to just cover this loosely, and then in about 7 or 8 hours we'll drain the nuts and we'll dry them in our oven. Well, these nuts have been soaking for about 8 hours, and what I have here are pecans, about 1.5 pounds of pecans. They've soaked for about 8 hours. They've plumped up a little bit, and so hopefully you can kind of see that. They've plumped up a little bit. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to transfer these to the colander over the sink, give them a good rinsing, and then we'll go on to the next step. Well, I've drained and rinsed the pecans, and now what I'm going to do is transfer them to a baking sheet that I've got some parchment paper on top of. And I like to have some overhang because that makes it easy to transfer them to whatever container I'm using once we've dried them out. Now, a word on doing this. If you have a dehydrator, you can dehydrate these, dry them at 110 degrees in your dehydrator, and that is the setting for living foods. So that will keep the enzymes that are in these nuts as alive as possible. Now, I recognize a lot of people don't have a dehydrator, and so I want to show you how to do these in the oven. Now, if your oven goes to 150 degrees, you can certainly dry them. I'm just going to transfer these onto the baking sheet. You can dry them at 150 degrees, but I know a lot of newer ovens only go as low as 170 degrees. And if that's what you have, let them dry at 170 degrees. Yes, as they're less, and I don't know if this is a word, but I've used it in some of my other videos, less enzymatic, less enzyme activity. I'm not that worried about it. The nuts are still nutritious, and by the process that we've done of soaking them in a salted water, we've made them easier to digest, and I think that's a good thing. And what is nice about these, they're called crispy nuts, but they're actually quite tender. They're a little crispy on the outside, but they're beautifully tender on the inside. And if you've never had them, I highly recommend preparing them like this, because they're quite lovely compared to just eating a raw nut. And raw nuts can be difficult to digest, even for people who have great gut health. Taking this extra step not only makes them easier to digest, but it just gives them a nice flavor. Alrighty, well that is all set, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these in my oven, which the lowest setting is 170 degrees, and I'm going to go ahead and put them in, and I'm going to check them every few hours, and I'm going to move them around a little with the spoon, stir them up to make sure everything gets evenly dried out, and that's pretty much it. So after, I'm saying, I'll just check them about every 2 hours, and it might take about 6 to 8 hours to get them fully dried to where I like them, and then I'll show you how they look. Well, these nuts have dried in my oven at 170 degrees, and it took about 8 hours or so, maybe a little bit longer. I just kept checking them and then stirring them around with a spoon to make sure that they would get evenly dried, and they look perfect now. And what I like to do at this point is store them in an airtight container. And first what I'm going to do is I'm going to take about a cup's worth, and I'm going to reserve these because I'm going to make a banana nut bread later, and I'm going to add a cup of chopped pecans. So now that we've got those set aside, I'm just going to take this parchment paper, lift this up, sorry if it's sounding very crinkly, and I'm just going to put these right into my container. There we go. Perfect. And now you can store these in your freezer or in your fridge or in your pantry if you think you might use them up very quickly. But I generally, about this amount I'll keep in my fridge because I'll use these up pretty quickly. I will chop them up, put them on salads, chop them and put them on oatmeal in the morning, and so they go pretty quickly. But if for any reason I think I'm not going to use them quickly, then I would recommend putting them in the freezer. For complete instructions on how to soak and dry nuts and make crispy nuts, please visit my website, marysnest.com. And if you like this video, I hope you'll give me a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And if you're interested in learning more about traditional foods cooking, I hope you'll subscribe to my channel and be sure to click on the little notification bell below that'll let you know each time I upload a new video. Well, that's all for today, but I want to thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to having you join me again right here in my Texas Hill Country Kitchen. Love and God bless.